want to take a little bit of time to look at a specific game and the preparation that we had prior to that, looking at how we could solve the pressure in the build-out. This was a game where we played this opponent the week prior and turned around due to the conference tournament and had to play them again. So we had some very recent film on how they were going to press us and how we would try to break that. So again, from a team shape, we tried to build and play from a 3-4-2-1 or a box midfield. And you can see the setup here, our outside center backs, and this was prior to the rules that allow you at the collegiate game to receive the ball inside the 18. So our center backs would be outside the 18, but not in the diagram. And then our center back was occupying the space at the top of the box, and so this was our base build-out. What we were trying to do is trying to ask more questions of the front three pressing. They're very aggressive on the first pass, and so we tried to position ourselves where they had more to worry about than just the 3v3 that they had presented, plus our free player, the goalkeeper. So the first thing we looked at is we moved one of our bottom of the box holding midfield players onto the top of the 18 with the other center back. We positioned them in between the pressing three. The idea being that, could we find the player in that space, or could we try to squeeze them and narrow them because they're worried about that space? But we wanted to add an extra player in the build-up. And what this did was it got those front three players pinned a little bit, so they couldn't really start aggressively wide, and that was our starting point. So we're looking at some of the different ways that we provided solutions. So as we stated before, the bottom of the box player slid down, we were occupying some of those gaps. So the first thought being that if one of their wide players squeezes in to deal with that dropping center back or dropping center mid or center back, we've now freed up a little bit more space for our center back to get on the ball, and we can play around their block. It was a really narrow block, so that was solution one. The next thing we talked about was if the winger starts to cheat, again, we're just looking at the rhythm. So we start to play around the block, the winger starts to cheat, and even in film, the winger would actually enter the 18 before the ball was played. Referee never caught it, but if they started to cheat, that frees up some space for us to then find that center midfield player, and then we could advance from there. And then the last one was, we talked about, eventually are they going to adjust? If our center mid drops into that space or at the top of the box, will one of their central midfield players follow them? And that happened from time to time, and asked some questions, and all that did for us is it freed up some space for us to play into one of our front three, or even our wing backs. And we have some film to kind of back that up. So looking at the first one would be an example of where their left winger here, where we're in the dark color, the opposition in the white, has started to slide a little bit wider, worried about our center back, so she can access, because she was asked to try to get around that center back and not let her play wide. They wanted to force the play back inside. So we've dropped our center mid down to the top of the box with our center back. And here we're able, the gap is big enough, and we're lucky to have a good player on the ball here who can accelerate and find the pass and move forward. So as you look again, the position of the left winger really paints the picture, and that was the cue. So they started a little bit wider. She's really ready to jump and press the center back. That gives us that extra window to play into the center mid. We're able to receive across your body, play forward, and she's a good player and is able to accelerate in that space. The next one we're looking at, as we walk through this, you can see one of our top of the box players has come back to cause some problems. The bottom of the box is shifted away, and that opens up enough space for us to get the ball to our center back and to play around it. So watch again. There's some movements ahead. The center mid that's dropped onto the top of the 18 moves and shifts and pulls, and kind of their shape is manipulated with some of our movement. And all that does is give us just enough time to be able to move the ball out to the wide player and then be able to play around it and be able to advance the game. The last one that we're going to look at is probably our favorite one. I thought was the easiest way to bypass the block. We're looking at what's the easiest way for our players to gain that access and beat the front three. And we're able to play directly over it into our wing back, who is able to then advance the game, and we can play from there. So again, we still refer to this as we're still playing out. We just looked at where the space was, where the pressing three was. They were really worried about the extra numbers we had at the top of the box, so it kind of squeezed and attracted some of their center midfielders even closer. So again, that allowed us then to have a little bit more space, and again, a bigger window for our goalkeeper to then to access our wing back and play the ball in. And in the end, we're just looking at, again, so trying to take a snapshot of some of the strategies we used to be able to build and still build our game the way we want in a controlled manner. Using film analysis to see how we're going to be pressed, and then decide what's a new strategy, how can we create extra numbers, how can we manipulate their shape to, again, free up space and force them to make decisions that give us a cue into where we can play and where we can advance the game.